And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Carrie Haisley with a look at your aviation weather. But first, before we dive in, a quick look at some of the ways that you can get in touch with us if you're interested. First is the Alaska Weather Information Line. That phone number 1-855-937-4977. That takes you to a menu system where you can select the area in which you want to forecast. That's a good option if you want to get your forecast by phone. You can find us on the web anytime at weather.gov/Alaska. And lastly, if you'd like to get in touch with me, my email address is carrie.haisley at NOAA.gov. I'd love to hear from you, so please go ahead and reach out. Now, diving into our weather for aviation, we have had widespread IFR conditions for the last couple of days out along the west coast. What's causing this? We've got a broad area of low pressure that's been dominating the weather over the Bering and out along the Aleutians, and then very strong high pressure, even for this time of year, strong high pressure anchored back over the Yukon and spreading into the eastern interior. So we are seeing widespread VFR conditions over a lot of mainland and down over the Panhandle as well, so those VFR conditions. But what we are seeing with that, though, is going to be some gusty winds because you've got a tight pressure gradient between these two systems, and then your lowest conditions out along the west coast. Now, not much changes going into the day on Thursday afternoon. Again, widespread IFR out here along the coast, broader areas of marginal VFR that's kind of creeping into the Gulf and then part of the Kenai Peninsula there. Down along the Panhandle for the day on Thursday, VFR conditions expected to persist. And then getting into the day on Friday, we don't see a lot of change. Again, widespread IFR out along the west coast associated with that broad area of low pressure. Lots of VFR, including down over southeast. Gusty winds again will be the dominating weather condition despite these VFR conditions. Now for Friday afternoon, we do see some improvement. It looks like we keep the IFR conditions though out along the west coast. Again, broader marginal VFR, and we see that creeping a bit closer to southeast, but again, the channels look like on Friday afternoon, they should stay VFR. Now, as far as our passes go, Anaktuvik, we are expecting it to be VFR for the day on Thursday, potential for some wind. Same is going to be true for Adigan Pass. And then we'll take a look at Lake Clark and Merrill Pass. Because we've got weather moving into the western part of the state, we see the conditions kind of deteriorate from south to north over this area. So Lake Clark, you're going to go down first. We're going to start the day at marginal, dip down to IFR conditions by the time we get into the afternoon. Merrill Pass, because it's further north, is going to take a little bit longer to go down. So expect that one to start out VFR, getting its way into marginal VFR with the potential for some snow showers by afternoon. Rainy Pass, though, further north, so it should stay VFR through the day on Thursday. Same is going to be true for Windy. And again, these Alaska Range passes are going to be dealing with gusty winds throughout the day on Thursday. Isabel, VFR, same is true for Mentasta. Coming around to Tanita Pass, also looking for VFR conditions to prevail on Thursday. And then Portage Pass, we do see marginal VFR conditions creeping their way into the eastern Kenai Peninsula, so we expect that pass to be a bit lower at marginal VFR. Down in the Panhandle, Chilkoot and White, VFR for those passes. However, again, gusty winds will be the story through those passes. Now look at our freezing levels. We do have kind of the surface line that gets into southwestern mainland Alaska and then dips its way along the Gulf Coast, just offshore, keeping the Panhandle entirely below freezing. The other thing to note, though, is we have this broad area of warmer conditions right here that's kind of poking its way up with that system that's kind of dominating the weather in the Gulf. So we do have freezing levels between 2,000 and 4,000 feet above the surface across a lot of southwestern mainland here. And then we see some higher freezing levels once you get down towards Kodiak and then out along the Aleutians. For icing conditions along the weather system that's pushing its way into the west coast, we do see potential for kind of widespread, considerable moderate icing. Further south you go, the higher up that's going to be because of that warm air that's poking its way in. So above about 8,000 feet down towards Kodiak, and once you get up towards the Seward Peninsula, more like 4,000 feet for the base on that. Also another area out along the Aleutians for some considerable moderate. So quick look at our winds aloft here. Jet stream, we see this really big kind of ridge aloft here with the jet stream. Strongest winds are going to be over the Panhandle and then just kind of south of that, getting down towards Pacific Northwest with that high pressure kind of anchored over mainland at those upper levels. For our lower levels, we get down to about 9,000 feet. Gustiest winds are out along the west coast here where we see that most active weather pattern. 85 knots over the Bristol Bay area, up at 9,000 feet for the day on Thursday. And seeing those same 85 knot winds winds dipping all the way down to 3,000 feet. So pretty gusty winds through this area too. Again, high pressure aloft dominating further to the east, low pressure really dominating the weather out here over the Bering Sea. Lastly, we'll take a quick look at our turbulence forecast for the day on Thursday. Widespread area with all of those winds out here along the west coast of considerable moderate, some potential with the wind being its strongest out around Kodiak Island, especially into the afternoon time frame. For some isolated severe, we'll keep that below about 6,000 feet, not quite as high as you get further north, and then another area for some turbulence expected out along the Aleutians.